The research ship drifted quietly through the dark of space, its silver body catching the faint glow of a distant sun. Inside the ship, the human crew prepared for their landing. They had traveled far, crossing empty star lanes and silent nebulae, all to reach the city of the Therans. For years, humans had heard stories about this alien race, tall, silver-skinned beings known for their wisdom and advanced knowledge. But the stories also carried a warning: the Therans had no warmth in their hearts. They lived by logic, not by feeling. The humans were excited and nervous at the same time. They had visited other worlds before, but this was different. The Therans were not easy to approach. They rarely welcomed outsiders, and they trusted no one until they had measured them carefully. Yet, the chance to step inside their great city was something no human could refuse. Among the crew was a quiet man named Ryan. He spoke little, and when he did, his words were plain and calm. The others often joked that he could sit in silence for hours and never grow restless. No one truly knew what he was thinking most of the time. Some of his friends believed he carried secrets inside, though he never said so. As the ship descended, the humans gathered near the viewing window. Below them stretched a sight unlike anything they had ever seen. The Therans city rose from the ground in sharp, shining towers. The buildings were smooth and silver, like blades of crystal pushed into the sky. Bridges connected them high above the ground, glowing faintly with steady light. The streets below were wide and perfectly straight, filled with moving lines of tall figures. The ship touched down at the city's edge, where a landing platform had been prepared. The moment the engines cooled, a group of Therans appeared. They stood in silence, waiting with long hands folded neatly in front of them. Their eyes, pale and glassy, studied the humans with no hint of emotion. Captain Mara, the leader of the human crew, stepped forward and greeted them warmly. "We come in peace and friendship," she said. The tallest Theran gave a small nod. "You are welcome, though we do not yet know your value." His voice was flat, neither friendly nor hostile. It was simply measured. The humans followed as the Therans led them into the city. The streets were quiet, though thousands moved across them. No laughter, no shouts, no music filled the air. Only the soft hum of machines and the steady steps of silver-skinned beings. The humans whispered to one another, unsettled by the stillness. Ryan walked at the back of the group. He kept his eyes open, studying the details others missed. He noticed how the Therans avoided unnecessary movement, how they walked in straight lines, and how their faces rarely changed expression. He felt like he was walking through a city of statues that had learned to move. The crew was taken to a grand hall. Its ceiling rose higher than any building on Earth, supported by columns that shone like polished metal. At the center, a ring of the Wren elders waited. They listened to Captain Mara explain why the humans had come to learn, to share, to build friendship. The elders gave no reply at first. They only looked at the humans as though they were tools laid out on a table, waiting to be tested. Finally, one elder spoke. "We will see what you bring to us. Knowledge must be weighed. Purpose must be clear. Until then, you remain as visitors." The words felt cold, but the crew stayed polite. They had expected no less. That night, the humans were given rooms at the edge of the city. The walls were smooth and bare, the light steady and without warmth. Some of the crew whispered that it felt more like a test chamber than a home. But Ryan said nothing. He sat near the window, watching the city lights far below. His eyes carried a quiet fire that no one else noticed. For the Therans, this was only the beginning of a test. For the humans, it was the first step into a strange world. And for Ryan, though he did not yet know it, this was the moment his silent presence would begin to change everything. The next morning, the humans were guided through the heart of the city. A group of the Wren watchers walked ahead of them, tall and silent, making sure the visitors did not wander off. The humans were shown great machines that floated above the streets, carrying goods from one tower to another. They saw silver bridges stretching high above, so strong yet so thin that they looked as if they might break in the wind. Everywhere they looked, the city seemed too perfect, as though every stone and line had been placed with exact thought. The humans admired the wonders, yet something in the air felt heavy. There was no sound of laughter, no sudden joy in the faces of the Therans. The humans whispered quietly to each other, but their voices seemed to vanish into the stillness of the city. Ryan walked at the back again, silent as always. He noticed how the Therans moved their eyes but rarely their heads, how they never touched one another, not even by accident. He thought of home of crowded markets, voices rising, children running. This place was the opposite of that. It was clean, exact, and silent. Later that day, the crew was given a short time to walk freely in the marketplace. It was the only place where some life could be seen, though even here, it was different from any human city. Tall silver-skinned traders stood behind glowing counters, offering strange crystals, tools, and food cubes that looked like small stones. The buyers spoke little, handing thin tokens without a single word of thanks. The human crew spread out in pairs, curious and eager. Captain Mara kept a close watch, reminding them not to touch anything without permission. Ryan, however, walked alone. He moved slowly, his steps calm, his hands behind his back. His eyes moved from stall to stall, watching, learning. The Therans stared at him as he passed, but quickly looked away. To them, he seemed plain, a quiet shadow among brighter things. Then one the wren did not look away. She stood near the far side of the marketplace, a young woman with long silver hair braided over her shoulder. Her name was Alira, though Ryan did not know this yet. She noticed him moving through the crowd differently than the others. The other humans pointed and whispered, showing excitement, but he walked with a stillness that seemed unusual. Alira stepped closer, curious. When Ryan finally noticed her, he stopped. For a moment they simply faced one another, surrounded by the steady flow of the market. At first, Alira saw nothing special. His clothes were plain, his face was quiet, his body was no different from the other humans. She tilted her head slightly, trying to see what had drawn her attention. But then he lifted his eyes to meet hers. The moment their eyes locked, she felt something strike inside her chest. His eyes were not like the pale glassy eyes of her own people. They were deep, alive, carrying a light that seemed to burn quietly. It was not brightness of flame, but something else, something strong and restless, like a storm that never ended. Alira stepped back quickly, almost stumbling. She pressed a hand against her chest, as if to calm her own heartbeat. Ryan did not move closer. He only watched her with the same steady gaze, his face calm. After a long silence, he gave a small nod, then turned away to continue walking. Alira stood frozen for a moment. She could not understand what she had just felt. The eyes of her people were calm, empty of strong feeling. But his eyes, those human eyes, had carried a force that unsettled her. She felt as though he had seen not just her face, but something deeper inside her. When she returned to her family that evening, her elders noticed her silence. "What troubles you?" one asked. "I saw a human," she said slowly. "At first, I thought he was nothing unusual. But then I saw his eyes." The room grew still. One of the elders leaned closer. "And what did you see there?" Alira lowered her head. "I do not know. But it was something we do not have. Something dangerous." The elders exchanged quiet looks. They had heard whispers before, humans with strange fire in their eyes, a sign of spirit or willpower that no Tharan could measure. For the Tharans, anything they could not measure was something to be feared. Alira did not sleep well that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his again, deep, alive, filled with something she could not name. And somewhere in the quiet room given to the humans, Ryan also sat awake, looking out at the silent city. He did not know the girl's name, nor her thoughts, but he had seen her step back when she looked at him. And deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. The next day, the humans were asked to remain inside the guest quarters. The Wren elders had called for a private gathering. They wished to speak about what Alira had seen. Word had already begun to spread among the people. One of the humans carried something strange in his eyes. Inside the great council hall, the elders sat in a wide circle. Their long silver robes reflected the pale light of the chamber. Alira stood in the center, her head lowered. She felt the weight of their glassy eyes upon her. "Tell us again," one elder said, his voice calm but sharp. Alira swallowed. "I saw him in the marketplace. He looked like the other humans, but when he lifted his eyes to mine, I felt something strange. It was as if he looked past my face, past my body. It was as if he saw inside me." Another elder leaned forward slightly. "And what did you feel?" "I felt," she paused, searching for the word. "I felt unsteady. Afraid. Not of harm, but of what it meant." His eyes were not empty. They carried a fire I do not understand. The elders exchanged quiet glances. One of them spoke at last. "It is the same as the old stories. Long ago, our people met the humans on distant worlds. Many Therans said their eyes were unsettling. It was said that humans carried a spirit too strong to be measured, a force too wild to be placed in numbers. So we stepped back. We chose distance." Alira's chest tightened. "Do you mean they are dangerous?" "Not in body," the elder said slowly. "But in spirit. They do not move as we move. They do not think as we think. Their will burns like a hidden flame. Such fire can inspire, but it can also destroy." Alira lowered her head again, but inside her heart, she was troubled. When she had seen Ryan's eyes, she had felt fear, yes, but not only fear. There had been something else. Something she could not name. Meanwhile, the humans waited in their quarters. The hours felt long, and the silence of the city pressed against them. Some of the crew grew restless. "Why are they keeping us here?" one whispered. "We came to learn, not to sit in a box." Captain Mara tried to keep them calm. "Patience. The Therans do everything by order. They are watching us, weighing us. This is their way." Ryan said nothing. He sat near the window, eyes fixed on the towers outside. He could almost feel the weight of unseen stares on him. Somewhere in the city, he knew, they were speaking of what had happened in the marketplace. He remembered the girl's face when she stepped back, the way she looked at him as if he carried something she could not name. He wondered what she had told her people. That evening, Alira returned to the marketplace, though it was quieter now. She walked among the glowing stalls, her thoughts heavy. She had spoken the truth, yet part of her felt uneasy. Why had she stepped back? Why had her heart raced? Was it truly fear, or was it something her people had no word for? She looked at the other Therans moving through the square. Their faces calm, their steps exact. None of them carried the same restless spark she had seen in the humans' eyes. For the first time, she felt her own people seemed empty. Alira did not speak this thought aloud. To question was dangerous. To feel differently was even more so. Yet the memory would not leave her. Back in the council hall, the elders made their choice. They would not expel the humans, but they would watch them closely. One elder said, "The fire in their eyes is not something we can remove. But we must keep it at a distance, where it cannot spread." The others agreed. They would treat the humans politely, but never fully welcome them. They would keep their walls high and their hearts closed. That night, Ryan's crewmates laughed softly as they shared small stories of Earth to pass the time. But Ryan remained quiet. His mind was elsewhere. He thought of the Theran's still eyes, and of the one girl who had seen his. He did not know her name, nor her thoughts, but he remembered the moment clearly. She had seen something, and she had stepped back. And deep inside, Ryan felt certain of one thing: the Thorns could try to measure humans, they could try to control their presence, but they would never understand the fire that lived behind human eyes. It was not something that could be counted. It was not something that could be silenced. It was the very thing that made humans different. And soon, whether the Thorns wished it or not, that difference would matter. The Thoran city had been calm for countless years. Its towers stood untouched, its streets stayed quiet, and its people believed no danger could ever reach them again. But deep below the shining surface, something old was stirring. The first signs came as tremors. Small shakes rippled through the ground, barely strong enough to be noticed. At first, the Thorans dismissed them as harmless. Yet when the tremors grew stronger, alarm spread across the city. Strange signals were rising from the earth. The humans, still guests within their bare quarters, felt the floor shudder under their feet. Captain Mara quickly gathered her crew. "Stay alert. Something is wrong." Ryan stood near the window, his calm eyes watching the towers sway slightly. He felt in his bones that something dangerous was coming. Moments later, the first machines broke through the streets. They were old war drones, tall as houses, with bodies of dark steel. Their arms ended in sharp claws, and their heads glowed with red sensors. Long ago, the Thorans had built such machines for war, but after peace returned, they had been buried and forgotten. No one had expected them to wake again. But now, one after another, they rose from beneath the ground, their heavy steps shaking the city. The Thorans reacted with order. Alarms sounded, and silver-skinned soldiers rushed into formation. Their weapons glowed with steady blue light. Yet even in the face of danger, their movements were slow, exact, and too controlled. They calculated every step before taking it. Against machines that attacked with sudden speed, this was a weakness. From their quarters, the humans could see the chaos unfolding. "We can't just sit here," one of them said. "We have to help." Captain Mara agreed. "The Thorans may not want our aid, but if this city falls, we fall with it." Ryan spoke for the first time that day. "We help. Not by waiting for orders. By doing what must be done." There was a strength in his calm voice that made the others listen. The crew rushed into the streets. At once, they felt the heat of battle. A war drone smashed through a silver tower, its claws ripping the walls apart. The Thoran soldiers fired beams of light that cut into its armor, but the machine adapted quickly, shifting its plates to block the attacks. "Spread out," Mara shouted. "Find weak points." The humans scattered. Unlike the Thorans, they did not move in perfect lines. They darted through the streets, using shadows and broken walls for cover. One human climbed the side of a fallen beam and leapt onto the machine's back, driving a charged tool into its joints. Sparks flew, and the giant crashed to the ground. The Thorans stopped in surprise. They had never seen such wild, quick action. To them, the humans looked reckless. But the results were clear: the machine was destroyed. Ryan moved differently from the others. He did not rush blindly, nor did he stand frozen. He watched carefully, then acted at the right moment. He grabbed a broken cable from the ground, still glowing with power, and hurled it across the legs of a war drone. The machine stumbled, giving others a chance to strike. Alira was among the Thoran soldiers. She saw him then, moving through the chaos with quiet determination. His eyes burned with focus, and she remembered the moment in the marketplace. Again, she felt her chest tighten. The fire in his gaze was not madness. It was willpower, the strength to act even when fear was near. The battle spread across the city. More drones climbed from the ground, their heavy steps breaking streets apart. The Thorans grew strained. Their ordered lines began to falter. Some soldiers hesitated, calculating too long. But the humans did not stop. They shouted to one another, shared ideas in the middle of battle, and acted without waiting for perfect plans. They used whatever they could find: tools, wires, even broken stone to slow the machines. Each small act weakened the enemy bit by bit. Ryan and Alira found themselves fighting side by side. A massive drone swung its claw down at them. Ryan pushed her aside and pulled her behind a broken wall. "Think fast," he said simply. He grabbed a loose pipe, jammed it into the drone's joint, and signaled to her. She fired her weapon at the weak spot, and the machine collapsed. Alira stared at him, her breath quick. "You did not wait for orders. You did not even know if it would work." Ryan's eyes held hers. "We try. That is what makes us human." For a moment, she could not look away. The fire in his eyes was there again, dangerous, yes, but also full of life. By nightfall, the drones had been pushed back. Many lay broken in the streets, their glowing sensors dim. The city still stood, though its walls bore scars. The Thuren elders gathered, watching silently as the humans tended to one another, sharing water and laughter despite their tiredness. The elders saw something they could not measure, something that unsettled them deeply. And Alira, standing apart from the others, whispered to herself, "The fire in their eyes is not just danger. It is something we need." She did not yet know what this meant. But she felt, with certainty, that the humans were not ordinary visitors. They were something her people had long forgotten. The battle had ended, but the city did not feel the same. The streets were cracked, the towers carried scars, and the people walked with unease. The Thurens had lived in peace for generations, yet in a single day, old war machines had risen and shaken their perfect order. The humans were given a corner of the great hall to rest. They were tired, scratched, and covered in dust, yet their spirits seemed strangely high. Some of them laughed softly, others shared food, and a few even joked about the fight. They had risked their lives, yet they carried a warmth that the Thurens could not understand. Alira stood at a distance, watching them. Her people, the Thurens, moved quietly among themselves. They spoke little, as if afraid of showing weakness. But the humans, though tired and bruised, shared their strength openly. Her eyes settled on Ryan. He sat on a broken stone, repairing a small tool with his hands. He did not laugh with the others, but his presence seemed steady, like a fire that would not go out. Alira remembered how he had fought beside her, how he had pulled her from danger without hesitation. And she remembered most of all his eyes, deep, alive, carrying a force she could not name. She walked closer, though carefully. "You did not fight like us," she said softly. Ryan looked up. His calm gaze met hers. "We fight as we live. We act, even when the path is not clear." Alira tilted her head. "You do not fear mistakes." He shook his head. "We fear standing still more." His words sank deep into her. The Thurens always waited for perfect answers, perfect plans. But the humans had moved forward, even with risk. And somehow, that had saved the city. Later, in the council hall, the elders called Alira before them again. Their silver robes gleamed in the pale light. "You fought with the humans," one elder said. "Tell us what you saw." Alira stood tall, though her voice trembled slightly. "I saw them act with courage. They used anything they could find. They did not wait for orders. They worked together as if each life mattered. And the one called Ryan, his eyes carried something I do not understand." The elders grew still. One leaned forward. "Again you speak of eyes. What is it you saw there?" Alira closed her own eyes for a moment, then spoke. "I saw fire. Not fire that burns, but fire that endures. It was Will. Even when he should have fallen back, he stood. Even when the machine towered above him, his eyes did not bend. It is not danger we fear. It is strength we do not have. The elders murmured softly among themselves. They had long believed human eyes carried something unmeasurable. Now Alira had spoken it clearly. One elder finally said, "This is why we stepped back from them in the past. Their fire cannot be controlled. It may lead to creation or to ruin." But Alira did not agree in her heart. She remembered the moment Ryan had looked at her in battle. She had not seen ruin there. She had seen hope. That night, Alira found Ryan alone outside the hall. The city lights shone faintly behind him. He looked out over the broken streets, his expression calm but thoughtful. "Why do you carry such fire in your eyes?" she asked quietly. Ryan turned to her. "It is not only me. All humans carry it. We fall, but we rise again. We face fear, but we move forward. Our eyes show it because we do not hide it." Alira's voice dropped to a whisper. "Our people fear it?" Ryan's gaze softened. "Fear often hides respect. They step back because they cannot measure it. But that does not mean it is wrong." She stood in silence, the words pressing against her heart. For so long, the Thorans had believed feelings were weakness, that fire could only destroy. But now she wondered if it was the missing strength her people needed. For the first time in her life, Alira felt uncertain not because of fear, but because of possibility. The next day, the Thoran people moved carefully through their city, repairing walls and clearing debris. The humans joined them, not waiting for permission. They lifted stones, fixed broken wires, and shared ideas with simple cheer. The Thorans watched in quiet surprise. One elder whispered, "They work as if each task has meaning. Even in small things, their fire is alive." And Alira, watching them closely, thought to herself, "At first, I stepped back from those eyes. But now, I see they do not carry danger alone. They carry truth. A truth we have long forgotten." Her thoughts lingered on Ryan, the quiet human who said little but carried so much in his gaze. She knew the elders would not change easily. But she also knew this, the fire in human eyes was not something her people could ignore forever. Days passed, but the city did not return to peace. The broken war drones had been destroyed, yet deep sensors warned of more movement below. The Thorans repaired their walls and towers, but fear spread quietly through their ordered streets. The humans remained ready. They trained with what little equipment they had, turning tools into weapons, wires into traps, and broken metal into shields. They did not sit still. Ryan was always among them, working with calm focus, guiding others without giving orders. His steady presence gave the crew confidence. Alira often watched from a distance. She saw how the humans worked with energy and laughter even in danger. They did not fear mistakes, they learned from them. She also saw how her own people grew tense, waiting for commands, hesitating whenever something new happened. The difference troubled her heart. Then, one morning, the ground shook harder than before. Towers swayed, and cracks split across the streets. From beneath the city, a roar of grinding metal echoed. The largest machine yet rose from the earth. It was taller than the towers, its body covered in dark armor that shifted like moving plates. Multiple claws extended from its arms, and its head burned with red light brighter than any before. The ancient core drone, the master of the swarm, had awakened. The Thoran soldiers rushed to the front lines, forming perfect ranks. Their weapons glowed, their steps were exact. But when they fired, the giant raised its armored arms and deflected the beams. The machine struck back with a claw, smashing through the front line. Soldiers scattered, their order broken in a single blow. Fear rippled through the city. Some Thorans fled, their measured minds unable to face the chaos. Others froze, waiting for commands that never came. The humans did not wait. Captain Mara shouted for her crew to spread out. "Hit it from every side. Don't give it a single target. They moved quickly, shouting ideas to one another, trying anything that came to mind. They climbed broken beams, swung cables, and fired at weak joints. But the machine was too strong. Their efforts slowed it, but did not stop it. Ryan stood in the center of the chaos, his calm eyes fixed on the giant. Alira ran to his side, her weapon trembling in her hands. "We cannot face this," she said. "It is too strong." Ryan turned his gaze on her. His eyes burned with the same quiet fire she had seen before. Strength is not only in size. It is in will. If we fall back now, it wins. Something in his voice cut through her fear. She looked at him, and for the first time, she felt her own fire stir within. When the giant drone pushed deeper into the city, Ryan climbed onto a broken transport and raised his voice. "Stand and fight. Not with fear, but with all we have." His words carried across the chaos. The humans shouted in reply, their voices loud and full of life. To the Thorans, the sound was shocking. They had never heard such raw defiance in the middle of hopeless battle. Alira felt her body move before her mind decided. She raised her weapon high and shouted as well, her voice breaking the silence of her people. "Do not retreat. Stand with them." For a moment, the Thorans hesitated. Their pale eyes shifted, uncertain. But then, hearing her voice joined with Ryan's, some found courage. Slowly at first, then stronger, they moved forward beside the humans. Together, they struck at the giant drone. The humans acted with creativity, using debris and cables. The Thorans added their precision, striking exactly where Ryan and his crew opened weak points. Step by step, they pushed the monster back. Ryan climbed onto the ruins of a tower, holding a glowing cable in his hands. "Now," he shouted. He hurled the cable across the giant's neck joint. Sparks exploded. Alira fired her weapon at the same spot, and the combined strike broke through the armor. The machine let out a roar of grinding metal and crashed to the ground, shaking the entire city. When the dust cleared, silence fell. The giant lay broken. Smoke rose into the night sky. The humans stood, tired but alive. The Thorans, shaken and breathless, looked around in disbelief. They had not expected to survive. And in that silence, Alira spoke, her voice steady. "At first, I feared the fire in their eyes. I stepped back. But today, I saw it clearly. It is not danger alone. It is the strength to face what we cannot." The elders listened, their pale eyes fixed on her. The people, too, began to murmur. They had seen what the fire could do, not just destroy, but inspire. Ryan said nothing. He only stood among them, his eyes calm, the quiet flame still burning within. The city lay in ruins, but it was not silent. Where fear once spread, voices now rose in unity. Humans and Thorans worked side by side, clearing rubble, lifting beams, and helping the wounded. The broken body of the great war drone rested at the edge of the city, its glowing core finally dim. For centuries, the Thorans had feared the machines that rose from beneath their world. But now, for the first time, they had destroyed the master. The shadow that ruled their lives had been broken. Alira stood on the remains of a fallen tower, watching her people. Their movements were no longer slow and uncertain. They spoke to one another in new ways, sharing ideas, laughing at small victories as they worked. She could not believe how much had changed in only a short time. Beside her, Ryan looked at the horizon, where the twin suns began to rise. His face was calm as always, but there was a weight in his eyes. "The city will need time to rebuild," he said softly. "Yes," Alira agreed. "But something more than stone has been rebuilt today." She turned to look at him. "When I first saw you, I did not know what to make of your fire. I feared it. I thought it would bring only chaos. But I was wrong. Without it, we would have fallen. Ryan shook his head. It was not my fire alone. It was all of us. You found your fire too, Alira. And your people followed. Her eyes softened. Perhaps. But it was you who lit the first spark. Down below, Captain Mara and the rest of the humans were sharing food with the Ren soldiers. Broken tables had been turned into benches, and for the first time, two very different people sat together without walls of mistrust. The Ren elders approached slowly. Their faces, pale and still, carried the weight of generations. They had lived by strict order, teaching fear of the flame in the eyes of others. Yet now they had witnessed its strength. One elder spoke, his voice low. For ages, we taught that the fire of humans was dangerous. But today, it saved us. We saw it with our own eyes. Another added, perhaps we were blind. Perhaps this fire is not meant to destroy, but to guide. Alira stepped forward, her hand resting lightly on her weapon. It is both, she said clearly. It can destroy if used without care. But with courage and heart, it can protect. That is what I saw today. The elders bowed their heads in thought. The people around them nodded, whispering among themselves. A new idea was spreading, an idea that had never been allowed before. For the Tharans, it was the first step into change. For the humans, it was proof that even far from home, their spirit could leave a mark. Later, when the suns were high, Ryan walked alone to the edge of the battlefield. The great machine's shell still smoked. He touched the broken metal, feeling the rough edges. The silence of the field reminded him of battles long past, where humans had also stood against impossible odds. Alira found him there. She watched him quietly before speaking. Will you leave now? Ryan did not answer at once. He lifted his gaze to the sky, where distant stars glimmered faintly. We came here as strangers, he said. But I think we leave as something more. Our journey must continue. Yet a part of us will remain here, in what we built together. Her throat tightened. She did not want to admit it, but she had grown to depend on his presence, his calm fire that steadied her. Then I will carry that part, she whispered. I will not let it fade. He looked at her then, and their eyes met. She no longer stepped back. She did not fear the fire in his gaze. Instead, she drew strength from it. When the humans finally prepared their ship, the whole city gathered to see them off. The repaired gates opened, and the Rens lined the streets. Their pale faces watched with respect, some even with faint smiles. Alira stood at the front, raising her hand in salute. Go with honor, she said, her voice strong. You will not be forgotten. Your fire will live here as long as our city stands. Captain Mara nodded in reply. And your courage will travel with us, wherever we go. The ship rose slowly into the sky, its engines humming. Dust swirled across the broken streets, but no one looked away. Every eye followed the humans as they climbed higher, until they were only a streak of light against the morning suns. The city fell quiet once more. But the silence was different this time. It was not filled with fear. It was filled with hope. Alira stood alone at the gates, staring at the sky where the ship had vanished. She remembered the moment she had first seen Ryan. At first, she had not recognized him, not truly. His eyes had frightened her. She had stepped back, unsure of the fire they held. But now, she understood. That fire was not to be feared. It was to be embraced. And as the winds carried dust across the city, Alira whispered softly to herself, at first, I did not recognize them, then I saw their eyes, and I stepped back. But now, I will never step back again.